Hey friends, it's Miss Kinard. We're going to read chapter 4 today of the Cesar Chavez book. So if you'll go ahead and get it open, and we're so glad that you're getting to read with us. I know it's not the same as us being there, but we're really glad that we at least can let you see our faces and know we're thinking about you. And we hope that you're doing well, and we hope we get to see you soon. So let's start. Who was Cesar Chavez? We're going to start with chapter 4 on page 46 and 47. Chapter 4, the NFWA. In the early 1960s, migrant workers constantly struggled to find work. Many made only about $1,000 a year, which was impossible to live on. The work they did was often dangerous. Landowners and farm bosses treated them with very little respect as human beings. Cesar wanted to organize farm workers into a union, a group of employees organized to negotiate, to sit down and discuss with employers about the terrible working conditions of the migrants. There were many unions in place by the 1960s, including those for warehouse workers, teachers, firefighters, miners, truck drivers, and other industries. Cesar felt a farm workers union would be able to negotiate better pay and safer working conditions with the growers. In 1962, after only a few years as director, Cesar resigned from the CSO. He wanted to start a farm workers union on his own terms. Cesar and his family moved back to Delano. Many of Helen and Cesar's relatives still lived there and could help support them. Cesar and Helen had very little money saved. So Helen picked crops in the fields, and Cesar took on odd jobs, either in the fields or building houses for his brother Richard, who was a carpenter. Page 48. Cesar spent most of his time driving from town to town in the valley around Delano, the San Joaquin Valley, to talk to migrant workers. He held meetings in their homes and listened to their problems. Cesar planned to build the union one farm worker at a time, but many didn't believe growers would ever listen to their concerns. They were scared to join a union. The farm workers were nervous because their employers had a lot of power and money. Page 50. When they had stood up to their bosses in the past, they had been beaten, fired, thrown in jail, or deported. So Cesar tried to keep the meetings secret. He didn't want the growers to punish workers for simply talking about forming a union. Cesar even tried not to call his organization a union. He called it a movement and hoped that it would bring a change in the way poor, hardworking people were treated. But Cesar couldn't do such a big job on his own. He worked closely with Dolores Huerta, a woman he had met through the CSO. While Cesar was quiet and friendly, Dolores was more outspoken. They made a good pair. Cesar's cousin Manuel and his brother Richard also helped Cesar to print flyers about the union and pass them out with the help of their children, nieces, and nephews. Through it all, he still got advice from Fred Ross. Cesar surrounded himself with people he trusted and who were willing to give up their time and money. He worked with people who believed that change was needed in America's treatment of farm workers. Page 52. Dolores Huerta, born in 1930. Dolores Clara Fernandez Huerta was raised in Stockton, California. Even as a young girl, she was interested in the rights of all people to be treated fairly and equally. Dolores led the Stockton chapter of the Community Service Organization in 1955. And in 1962, she co-founded the National Farm Workers Association with Cesar Chavez. In 2012, Dolores was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Barack Obama. She continues to speak out for the rights of workers, women, and children. Page 54. They decided to call their union the National Farm Workers Association, the NFWA. As members joined, they paid monthly dues that kept the union going. Cesar spent a lot of time in his home office making calls and writing letters. Dolores and Manuel took to the fields to talk to farm workers. Helen Chavez was in charge of keeping track of cost. At times, uniting so many people seemed like an impossible task, but Cesar had faith that it could happen. The desire to win has got to be very strong, he said, or else you can't do it. After about 6 months, the NFWA had enough members to hold one large meeting. About 150 members and their families met on September 30th, 1962, in the town of Fresno. Page 56. Together, they decided that their first goal would be to try to get the governor of California to set a minimum wage for workers. A minimum wage is a price paid per hour of work that landowners could not go below, and the NFWA wanted to have a say in what the wage would be. At the meeting, they unveiled their new flag with the strong symbol of an eagle. Everyone shouted the NFWA motto, "Viva la causa," long live the cause. As the union grew, Richard fixed up an old church in Delano and the new NFWA office. The union started a newspaper called El Malcriado. The name meant those who talk back, and sometimes refers to children with bad manners. The NFWA was ready to talk back to their employers about how unfairly they were treated in the fields. Since many farm workers couldn't read, cartoons played a big part in communicating the NFWA's message. Growers were abusing the workers, and the union could help them. They sold their paper at barrio grocery stores for 10 cents. A strike was one of the best tools unions can use against unfair employers. During a strike, workers would refuse to pick crops. They wanted to pressure their bosses into negotiating with them. They would march with signs called picketing to make their demands known. Cesar had wanted the union to have more members before asking anyone to stop working and launching a major strike, but he couldn't hold off striking much longer. Page 58. Another union, made up mostly of Filipino workers, was planning a strike against grape growers in Delano who refused to pay them the same salary that they had received from other growers. Larry Itliong was a leader of the Agricultural Workers Organizing Committee, the AWOC, in Delano. He asked the NFWA to join them in the strike. If the two unions worked together, they could make a bigger difference. At first, Cesar wasn't sure his group was ready. They had only a little over 1,000 members, but he realized that a strike was the only way to get the growers to listen. And if he did his best to spread news of the strike beyond Delano, he might be able to draw attention to the issues facing farm workers. So the NFWA joined the AWOC in their strike against the Delano grape growers. All right, guys, that's the end of Chapter 4. Join Miss Bagwell tomorrow, and she's going to read Chapter 5 with you. You guys have a great time. Stay safe, stay inside, and we hope to see you soon. Bye, guys.